into the solstice. Micheila and Ethann talk about validation and synchronicity.
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
Yeah, there is. There really is. Looks like we're hooked up to them. I don't have anybody popping in yet. Here they come. So, welcome everybody to the live and replay. Uh, we got Micheila and Ethann in. What an honor this is going to be. What a great hour this is going to be. Um, yeah, we're just letting everybody hook up right now. People are starting to trickle in. I'm going to go ahead and play the intro for a minute and 19 seconds, and then we'll sit down with our beautiful brother and beautiful sister and see what we can see what codes we can come up with in exchange. Be right back. How's it going, everybody? Just a couple of quick announcements. David Icke is coming on. He did cancel November. He canceled all of his shows through the end of the year because of exhaustion. He's going to be coming on in January. We have a set day and time. I'm not going to divulge that at this time for certain reasons, but we will post it a couple of days before. And just as a reminder to everybody, we do multi-stream on 14 platforms. If anything happens at any point, all of our shows can be watched on the SolarGNetwork.com. If you haven't been by there, you might want to check it out, maybe get some SolarG swag, and just check out our interactive website. And on top of that, I want to say thank you, everybody, for your continued love and support and contributions that allow us to keep doing this every single day. Every day is a miracle, and that's the energy, as far as I'm concerned, of the 5D. It's a miracle, a miraculous realm run by miraculous souls. We've got two beautiful, brave, beloved, miraculous souls with us today. They've both been on a few times alone, and they were kind enough to come on together. Everybody knows Micheila and Ethann. They just, they to me, they set the mark. They just go about their business. They follow their mission, and they are really, in my opinion, a great example of this new Trinity energy where two or more gather and that third energy comes in and cooperates and co-creates with the co-creators. And these are both romantic and non-romantic connections. We've talked about this for quite a few months this year, some of our experiences in Sedona and so on. But it's just a great pleasure to have y'all here. And I'm a little bit moved right now. I'm not sure if it's the energy or if it's you or both.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You guys you're such a huge, you have such a huge swath, like a big wake behind a boat that you guys are creating over there where you guys are at with the team that you put together and the things that you're doing. You're really doing things that are atypical today, but I have a feeling they're going to be very typical in the near future. I don't know a whole lot. I know that we've talked on the shows that you've come on individually about how you guys met, and you guys, obviously must have served as a mutual impetus or catalyst or something, because you were both getting it done anyway. But then you came together, and did you have any idea that was it a gradual thing, or did it just bam?
Well, I'll say he was getting it done before I was, because actually the way that we met was I was going through this insane awakening, as of course I'm sure everyone who's following the show and you yourself have done, and found myself kind of in this insane world where I was looking at everything with new eyes. And I had started to channel, but I really didn't have anyone in my life to talk about this, nor did I, was I willing to talk about it with the people that I knew. And so I just started to do a little research in my area because I was feeling pretty alone, and ended up at one of his energy transfers. So he had started to do these, group energy transfers in the area. And that's actually what happened. I ended up at the energy transfer, and right off the bat decided to get an astrology reading from him. And kind of a funny story, this is just how Ethann is. I walk in the door and we're doing this stuff. He's telling me about the expo, which he, hadn't started doing yet, but was, planning as division. And, coming from a business background, I said, I'd love to contribute, to that. And I could write a press release. I had some marketing experience, and walked out the door with the executive director position,
Wow.
without all his responsibility. And now, to be honest, I was super excited about it because I was really looking for some way to be of service and utilize, my gifts, and it just all collided so perfectly. So that was the beginning.
So you walked in for an astrology session and came out the executive.
Totally. Yeah. I remember backing out of the driveway that day thinking, what just happened? I don't know. But ever since that day, my life has taken a pretty drastic turn.
Yeah, right.
For the better, of course.
I can't, knowing Ethann, because Ethann's got that, you've got that, I don't know, you're cerebral, just, I don't see Ethann getting excited, like, overly emotional, or just like, I see him as like very calm. I like to watch gangster movies. He kind of like the Meyer Lansky persona, this always calm and cool, and the hurricane's going. But I can't really see you, Ethann, like making a decision like that, of that magnitude so quickly. Was that out of the ordinary for you? Did you just know something?
Well, I have a habit of putting people to work when they even give the remote inclination of wanting to do something. So never show up in my presence and say you want to do something, because well, but on the other hand, though, I sort of have a vision for things and people, so when somebody shows up, I generally know where they belong. So I do that quite often.
Yeah. And which, there's so many amazing facets to this story, because first of all, I had the James and Kirsty Lee Greenshields from New South Wales, Australia. And they've been on a few times, and they do a lot of local work, not so much on the virtual side, but you guys have really, really gained a lot of traction in your community and virtually as well. But you're actually got like a pretty good mix of your efforts are local, really, it's probably, is it what, like 50% of what you do?
Oh, I don't even think it's that much, really. No. We started off very local, for sure. But now I'd say far more global, international. We still do our events here locally. And interesting, we've had this turn of tide where we tend to get people more coming in to the events from out of state, even out of country sometimes, than we do people in our own area. So,
well, COVID probably had something to do with that. These quarantines, the blessing. And the virtual exposure has really expanded for a lot of people, I think. Was there like an aha moment between y'all when you were just working side by side, and all of a sudden you looked at each other and go, oh my God, what do we have here?
No, I think it just sort of happened over time, gradually. It wasn't really, I don't think there was a single moment. It just sort of matured over time.
Yeah. That sounds right. That sounds about right. That fits the both of you. Have you guys had like, I know you channel Micheila, and I know Ethann's strengths. We've talked about it. Have you had any like soul memory, past life, galactic connections, that type of thing?
So many, so
Really?
many. And it did, I think as we gradually started to move in that direction, all the memories
Yeah.
started to flood back. And it's kind of overwhelming because
Yeah.
I think what happened with us and what happens with a lot of couples who've spent multiple lifetimes together, whether it be on Earth or, multi-galactic universes, as that energy starts to be revealed and remembered, you're working through it in this lifetime as if, it was coming back. So, I think there's a path that we'll say sacred couples perhaps walk
Yeah.
where, it isn't all roses and,
Thank you.
yeah, it isn't all easy. And I think we certainly did go through that where there was a lot of life review and, bringing
Yeah.
back all of that stuff. And it feels so otherworldly too,
Yeah.
because some of it doesn't really land and make sense very well here, yet you still have to deal with it, the feeling of it and the,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. I remember when I first met Morgan, we went to Houston, staying at a relative's house, and it was 3 or 4 days into it, and she sat down before me, and the mother goddess energy jumped into her, and she started channeling. Now I'm sitting across from her, talking to this person that I've been talking to for a year and a half online. Her voice changes, and she starts to tell me all these things. And I'm like, holy crap! Like, I mean, I knew I was at a higher vibration in my life. But when I heard that, I thought, wait, this is now somebody else is involved. And of course, there was just a lot more after that. We would sit down and do a session or a meditation and put our hands together. And next thing you know, I'm watching all these times I said goodbye to her. And she turns to me and looks at me, why did you always leave? And I'm like, I don't know. Like I say, like you said, it's a bit overwhelming. But you learn, I guess I did, to get past the wow real quick and appreciate where we're at right now. That's really getting to be exciting to me. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I would imagine you feel the same way.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a theme too. Something that I've noticed in my session work with couples is we're having these really quick collisions and then working out the bugs and the karma that got left behind so that we can finish something that was left behind in other lifetimes. And I see that for, Ethan and I, for sure. We're here on a continuation journey of, things that we've done before. And sometimes we joke, like, are we going to do it this time?
Better.
Yeah.
I mean, unless it's going to end or something. I don't know. I mean, that's, we actually had a transmission in Utah 3 years ago. And it was the memory of, it was a galactic incarnation. So I guess you could call it future. And it was, hey, we're going to go do this. And we promised to find each other. And it was just like, it was just, like I said, getting over the wow of the downloads of the memories is to me, I can't function if I sit there and think about it. I just start crying and bawling like a little baby. One of the things that's really been starting to show itself is this third energy. People are talking about the golden child energy. They're talking about the conception of the golden child in March and how it's being birthed now as an energetic force. And of course, that's about the time COVID started. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of COVID babies in the physical world being born, which is synchronistic. But in your case, it's fairly easy to look at because you guys are building this enterprise, for lack of a better word, this consciousness of co-creation and collaboration and community and so many other things. We were told early on, be together, love each other, and broadcast. And anytime, no matter what was happening, we stuck to it. And because that was always the orders. I don't know if that resonates with you, but being together, the fellowship and I don't know if we should call this work, but the passion, the shared passion. I mean, do you feel like those three mechanisms kind of run together?
I think they have to run together. I think that's where we're heading, and that's why partnerships in general, intimate relationships are changing so much as we move into the 5D, because they really haven't been based on those ideals. And not that, love hasn't been present, but to be honest, I think even the concept of love that we had before is upgrading to something that we never realized. So yeah, there's definitely this symbiosis between, the partnership and the work and the mission and everything else around it. And it's kind of magical.
Yeah.
I think at first we couldn't even see it until it got so intricate and, wound. It's interesting to kind of look at what you've created together and see how it so perfectly fits. And, not to say it's effortless, it certainly is. It takes effort, but there is an energy that comes in to support it.
Yeah,
And,
I agree.
I think that's where we're all moving.
I think another thing that that I find interesting. I've probably done shows with maybe 60 couples, and it's interesting because first of all, the individuals have, like, every couple doesn't have the same attributes and makeup. Like, I did one yesterday, and the gentleman was talking to me, and like he was talking about his role, and I thought, oh, that's a lot of that's Morgan over here. So you see the mix of the masculine and the feminine, but for the most part, there seems to be some uniformity to the let's just say the human male journey, the female human journey, and these relationships, these connections, kind of parallel the collective energy of the feminine and the masculine. Have you experienced that? Have you noticed anything like that where things are moving in the collective and it's happening on the local level with you guys?
Being in a relationship?
Yeah, I know I've had like things come in, especially this year, and I'm like, okay, I was unaware of that because of my human male journey. I was unaware of that. And now I know. And the next thing I know, I get up the next morning and somebody's writing about, hey, the masculine just stepped up, and, that kind of thing. I've just seen parallels in our relationship with what I've seen out in the field.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a tricky time. I think that's really what it's all about, is we're coming back into that balance, but there's no rule book, so we're working it out in relationship. I mean, I definitely have had the astral experiences lately in dream state with that, even with stuff from the past that's been coming in, and I feel like is, working out in astral. But yeah, I definitely see the synchronicity of it in the outer world, no question. But even like, I don't think it's cushy either, right? I mean, a lot of people talk about feminine and finding that balance, and it's kind of like this soft, and it certainly is. But I think that it's tough too, because we have to go deep into some areas that are not comfortable, and be real, willing to get raw and vulnerable. It's kind of taking away this threshold of comfort that many of us are used to.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
that's true. It's like being bare naked in the soul, and it's a little frightening to the human aspect, but it's gotten easier this year. And I know, and I say that on an individual level, but also in this field of sacred union energy, or whatever you want to call it, that frequency. I just feels like since about the summer that we're literally walking in a new space now, all of us, and there seems to be a more palpable evidence of reciprocation from that unseen force, that third energy or Holy Spirit, whatever you want to call it. But that's what I'm feeling. Are you guys feeling like we're picking up some momentum, like a snowball going down the mountain?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, to some degree, I think that's why things in the outer world have been as challenging as they are, because when we raise in consciousness, or we balance masculine and feminine, everything that we've created around us that isn't in that balance or resonance is going to have to disintegrate and make space to rebuild and replace with better things, So yeah, I'm very encouraged by all of that, as discouraging as I think it seems for some.
Yeah. And then another thing too is the construct of these new enterprises, such as what you guys are doing or what we're doing. The I think I've talked before on the show with Ethan on this, and that was in regard to like going in and trying to, like, we just finally unleashed our website and network early last month after almost 9 years, and it was 2 years of talking about it. But every time that we would go to frame it up, it was in the constructs of the old 3D patriarchal, do this, do that, straight lines, and as that was released, or very organically, that soft energy you're talking about moved in people, in opportunities, and the different things, and started to really blossom. And this is new, but I can see that feminine or that balance coming in, and it is a little bit softer. The lines aren't exactly straight; they're a little bit curvy. I don't know if you guys can relate to that in what you're building. I know you have a lot of feminine energy in your enterprise, but does that look a little bit different? You said you had a business background. I know Ethan did too. Does it look a little bit different than the old business paradigm?
What do you think?
I come from a lifetime in the business and entrepreneurial space, so I think it's for me anyway. It's hard to forget that. So I would say I employ a lot of that in what I do today, but in a different way than I used to, obviously. So I think the most significant difference in how I do things now compared to conventional business and finance is that my model is really, in the conventional business and finance space, you're trying to sell and make money, and your focus is really on the numbers, where I try these days to teach a slightly different approach, which is, basically to give away 90% of what you do just for free or to benefit other people. And then maybe the 5 to 10% you charge enough to be able to pay for the other 90% that you're doing for free. So in that way, you can help as many people as you possibly can, but also not be struggling financially yourself. So it's a little different approach than most people would do, and than I've done in the past.
Yeah, I can relate to that. And there is something about that. I guess free offering, freely sharing. I know that we haven't charged here. Now Morgan has a practitionership, and she has a price for a session or a group course or class. So there is a mix there, but there is a lot to be said for that 90% you're talking about, because I have seen and continue to see on an expanding level the reciprocation from the universe. And it's told me many times, and I'll say, what am I going to do? How are we going to pay for this? And how are we going to pay for that? And I just hear, love each other, be together, and broadcast. Just get the microphone and just go to work. And sure enough, it always works out to where whatever is needed comes at the moment that we need it, or shortly before. We don't need to have white knuckles all the time. It seems to be getting a little bit smoother. But yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for that. I really do. I call it 5D commerce, or what it's been given to me is 5D commerce, something that will replace and perpetuate itself, that's not based in the dualistic principles or foundational elements. So yeah, I think this is big stuff that doesn't get enough press, but that's another thing that seems to be changing too. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, is how much awareness do we need to create about what we're doing, or is the energy of what we're doing bringing what we returning what we put out to us, regardless of how many people know what we're doing? How do y'all sit with that?
I'm not sure I quite got the
Well,
question.
I think when we get into what I've found, I'll say in my work, is if I start thinking about getting attention for what I do or ensuring that other people see my work, I get out of alignment with the mission.
Yeah.
So if I stay in alignment with what I'm supposed to do and what the guides are offering, all the rest of that takes care of itself.
Yeah.
And the people come that need to come, and the ones that are no longer relevant fall away and are replaced by new. It's just a symbiosis. And you know what you were talking about previously with the, you know, the guides call it open source. That's really been coming in a lot in session work, where I've had a lot of people getting very frustrated around things like websites and putting it all together. And it's often because it's being forced through an old mechanism, model, or belief, where the guides have literally said, just halt it all. You know, can you halt it all? Because, you know, divine time and the orchestration of, you know, being in your mission unfolds everything, right, that's meant to come. And so I think that's part of this process as well, is we need to kind of get out of our own way.
And let it create itself, because there is an energy that's contributing now that's unlike what it used to be. But I totally get what you're saying, and I was told that many times to my own frustration. Just stop, just blow it up, and then you're sitting there going, okay, when's it going to happen? In fact, I went to an episode just a few days ago because I was looking at you know, I try to keep tabs on what others are doing to pick up nuances and just to feel the energy and what, you know, what can I do, whatever. And I was like looking at different things and thinking, God, we've got to. I went into that mindset. We've got to expand this thing. You know, we've got to create a wider state of awareness. And I just heard, you know, how many times we got to tell you, knock, knock, you know, how many times we got to say this. Just let go, because if you don't step into the magic, Todd, the magic's not going to be allowed to, like you said, get out of the way, or you're going to be blocking it. But yeah, these are very, very resonant and dear things to my heart, and I'm talking about the energetic offering that an individual, couples, or group makes, having that faith that what you put out will return tenfold, and also how the energy speaks for itself, regardless of how many people know who you are. I mean, I'm seeing more and more and more evidence of that. And I would imagine in your work that you both do, that you've seen some of this, or you've seen change and evolution, particularly the last few months of this year, in people, in some of the things that you're doing. Would that be right?
I think that certainly it's been a challenging year for a lot of people, right? And we've been sort of navigating it ourselves through the various things that we do. It's been certainly not as smooth as in previous years, but we're actually doing a lot of new and interesting things. So, I mean, I think, though, getting back to your earlier point, I want to make a comment about commerce. And I think it's important. I mentioned the, you know, give away 90 to 95% of what you do for free or at very low cost. But I don't think that should ever be done from the feeling of lack. So if in the giving has to be the getting. So in the sense that the things that we do that we just give away, we get something from the giving. So even if it's just the joy of what we're doing, like our kids programs, we don't actually do too much for those because we have Micheila and others who are facilitating those programs. But it's just it's joyful just to have it out there and know that the kids are benefiting and hearing their stories. And so in the giving, there's getting happening as well. So I don't think you should ever give when you feel like you're sacrificing yourself, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Because then the I think the concept of let's get, and this is used in conventional business, right? You give away 10% of your income, and so you can get back 10 times as much. And I think that's a flawed philosophy because it's a self-centered, selfish philosophy. Not that it doesn't work, but I think instead the giving should be done from the heart, and you should be getting in the giving, and that's when it works the best. But also about the we were talking about being concerned about the numbers and such and what you're doing. I think it's important. It doesn't really matter what other people are doing. So what other shows are doing. If you can figure out what makes you unique and special, and just focus on that and forget everybody else. At the end of the day, we're all here to express ourselves in our own unique ways, and if we can figure out what that is instead of trying to be like everybody else, then I think you can become very successful, and that's what really allows you to charge enough for the 10% or 5% of what you do for pay to cover the cost of the 90% that you do for free.
Yeah.
So you really have to find that special thing that makes you stand out and unique, and that you also enjoy doing.
Yeah, I think that you're right on all accounts, and with the giving, I'm glad you restated that. I look at it. There's a couple. There's another thing I could compare to it. Morgan and I have had periods of energetic separation. That now this has gone on since we met 5+ years ago, and it's gotten less and less frequent. And it's not a bad thing. In fact, it's a gift. It's like a way for us to pull our own energy back in, and then we come back together. And so the reason I'm relating it is because what we noticed was each time this happened, we would come back together and it would just explode. But you can't go into energetic separation going, oh, I'm going to do this because I know we're going to come back together and everything's going to explode. You actually have to get to this point, this still point of surrender, faith, love, courage, whatever. And I look at this the same way with what you're talking about, because I know, Morgan's business kind of started to pick up just unexpectedly right before the summer hit. And, she'd say, I just sent so-and-so $400, and she probably had five, right? And then I would do the same thing. And we were doing it from that space of, hey, you know what? They've contributed this. We don't have like a payroll or anything, but we can send this. And the same thing happened. Every time we would do that, within 24 hours, the money would be replaced and then some. But again, you can't go into it, like you said, thinking, oh, I'm going to do this so I can get this return back. It doesn't work that way. You actually have to be in a space of pure integrity and surrender and faith. So that's a very good point. And these are the building blocks of the new earth, aren't they?
Oh,
These
yeah.
type of things.
Yeah, I think ultimately, long term, we won't concern about those kind of things. And I think the next step in the human development is to have an economic model that's more like that. And I think if we're going to change this world and make it a better place than it is currently, we have to move, especially now. Because of everything that happened this year, there are a lot more people who are going to be struggling and suffering financially in the years ahead. So the only way we can solve that is if we all devote ourselves to helping others in an unconditional way, but built into that is we're getting by giving. And I think in that way we can get through this time without too much difficulty. And I always use another, a lot of people this year, for example, are having trouble feeding themselves because they've lost their jobs, or they're going to be homeless, or they are already. And I think the thing is, the universe always supports you if you step up. And so if you're having trouble finding food or feeding yourself, or you don't have a home, then I think the solution to that is find a way to feed other people, or find a way to provide shelter for others. Because what the universe will do is, whatever you do to help others, the universe will provide for you. So if you need something, then give it to someone else, and in the giving, you will get it back. And I find that that's been very true. So you'll always be taken care of if you step up and live a bigger life. Most people struggle because they're too focused on themselves and their own personal needs. So if you're, struggling financially, you're so focused on your own financial problems that you end up struggling. Whereas if you turn that around and helped other people who are struggling in the same way, then the universe takes care of you as well. So I think I think the next step in human development, we have to start living like that. And in so doing, I think we can make the world a much better place, and we don't have to suffer and struggle in the years ahead.
Right on to that. Yeah, I knew there was a story of a guy in Houston years ago during the oil crunch when everybody lost their jobs. And he was in that situation. And he decided he was going to go down to the beach and feed all the homeless people. So he made some rice and beans, or bought some rice and beans, went to his house, and they turned the electricity off. So then he went to his neighbor's house, cooked everything up, went down to the beach and fed the homeless, and continued to do this. And a relative of mine is the one that told me the story, and ran into the gentleman a couple years later. You got to remember, this was an oil crunch, and these guys were going from $200,000-300,000 a year to driving cabs if they could get a job. Anyway, a couple years later, this man's testimony was exactly what you said. Like, he had so much abundance come into his life, and he continued to share it and expand his efforts. His philanthropy efforts and that. But yeah, and I feel like this type of energy, this type of initiative is being reciprocated big time now. Like, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but like, I know these last few years there was a graduated, I don't want to say struggle, but there was a graduated, cross this threshold, integrate, cross this threshold, integrate, and now it just seems to be going boom, 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 boom. And the term instant manifestation is really becoming instant manifestation. I mean, it's like, you close one door, the next door opens, and you're going from the outhouse to the penthouse overnight. But it's nice to see that. It's nice to see that.
I agree with that. Yeah.
We spend a lot of time talking about what we talk about on this show, Morgan and I. We have reviews at least once a day, to review the shared dimensional experiences we have virtually every day, and also to just talk about what's going on. I would imagine that this happens with you guys as well. And I where I'm going with this is, do you ever get to the point? Did you ever go in, Ethann, to get a channel from Micheila? Or Micheila, do you ever go in and get a session from Ethann?
Well, not as often as you might think. I mean, we don't actually live together. So, and we work, even though our missions are combined and we run the organization together, we do have our separate work we have every day also. So on a typical day, she has clients, I have clients, and they're not the same clients. So we have that, and as we've gotten busier with things in recent years, I don't really bug her to channel for me so much anymore. Although recently I did, but it's been years since I did that, right? So, but yeah, I mean, she asked me to look at astrology charts periodically, and I do for her, and she channels for me. Although not very often these days, just it's just because we're busier now and we've got umpteen other projects going on, and that's only going to increase more in the years ahead. But yeah, sometimes.
Yeah, I think what you're not acknowledging is that it's just changed. Like when we first were a couple, we did have those channeling sessions and energy transfer sessions all of the time, and they were just this designated kind of thing. But we are in this interesting flow now where I think if anyone were to look into our life, mainstream, perhaps it would look really odd, but it's just that all that energy is blended now. There's no no need to set the session time. We're just immersed in working with the organization and our own projects, but then it comes together in our relationship to the point where I don't really think we need to set designated time aside like we did before. It's just like an ongoing conversation, maybe.
Yeah. No, I can relate to that.
Yeah.
It's a lot like a lot of people's journey, including my own, where you have these seemingly external aspects coming in and, you know, communicating with you. And then as time goes on, they're like, where are they? Well, they're now inside of me. You know, it's kind of like that. And then in terms of what you said about the ongoing conversation, I really get that. And I guess you could call it telepathy,
Yeah.
or oneness. Because if you can't have oneness, you can't expect to have oneness with 3, 4, 5, 10, 100 people if you can't have it with the one right in front of you. But I've noticed the telepathy between us, that ongoing conversation, has been there and ascended with everything else, you know, paralleled everything else that's happening in the ascension. But I've noticed recently that it's almost getting goofy. You know, how like I was doing a show yesterday, and she will occasionally send me a note and say, hey, you want what you might, or suggest, not demand, but, you know, you want to ask this, or maybe you want to ask that. Yesterday, she sent me one that was probably the longest one she'd ever written me. And it was a gentleman we were talking about his relationship, a very, very illuminated guy. Anyway, everything she sent me, I was in my head, literally almost verbatim, as to what she was sending me. It's like 4 different messages. I'm thinking, I'm on it. But it was almost goofy. It could have been me. And we've actually had and again, this is expanded, particularly in the last half of this year. You're talking about the mixing and the feminine, masculine, the everything just mixing to a point where it's blurred. You know, I mean, we put our hands together, we connect. I've often, you know, watched her masculine energy, her light body step out, and vice versa. I mean, and I understand these things are all metaphoric at the end of the day, but it's like, where do I start, and where do I stop and you start? Like, that's just getting very, very interesting, especially when you consider what we might call the supernatural consequences of getting to that point of union. So, yeah, this is really getting interesting. Now, we're heading into 2021. I know, having talked to the both of you, and particularly Ethann, in regard to his story and how it started, and the momentum and the consistency. And so I can see your forward thinking, you know, and I love the way you keep things in perspective and don't just poo-poo away COVID or the realities in the human experience. What do you guys see for yourself? What do you see for the world as best you can in 2021? Do you see this as being some people are talking a lot of disclosure. Other people are talking about the elimination of victim consciousness. I mean, just there's a lot of different narratives. Do you guys have any take on that?
Okay. Oh my gosh, so much. I agree with you on those 2 statements. I think it's inevitable that we're going to have more disclosure and more transparency, because we're in a period of mass awakening. And I think this was another, you know, aspect of this whole experience was, you know, not only us who have perhaps been, you know, dedicated and in this world and conversation for a while were to upgrade, but others as well. And that is going to cause, you know, kind of a ripple effect across all of these different areas of society, where we are now seeing things that we've never seen before, which is causing a lot of instability that we are coming in to stabilize. So I see 2021 as kind of the guides say a wave, you know, forward back, because, you know, we crest on the shore and draw forward with all of this momentum, and then we pull back and we gather up, you know, some others and crest again. So it may feel that way a little bit, you know, in 2021. But I see, at least for a lot of people who are, you know, on mission, and especially couples like we've been talking about, a lot of new projects and creativity. Yeah. And that's what's going on here. These came up in this past year that we probably never would have done individually or as an organization that we're now, full speed ahead, putting into action. So a lot of new stuff coming to the planet.
Far out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I think short term, we are going to see a bit of a splitting in society between in two different factions, you might say.
Yeah.
One that's going to go more the mainstream narrative and a more restricted, controlled society, and you can already kind of see that. And the other that I think because of the extremity of what's been happening this year, more and more people are becoming aware of what's happening or what's been happening for a long time. So I think because of that, more and more people are becoming awakened to the reality of the world in which they live. And I think long term, what this is going to move us into is a society that is more decentralized, where we don't have central authorities who are making the decisions for everybody, or like this year, everything is being orchestrated by a handful of people, and everybody's suffering because of that. And I think because of that, we will eventually move into society where that won't be possible anymore, where we as a society will be able to govern ourselves individually and be more self-empowered versus giving our power away to centralized authorities. So, and you can already see that. For example, even the censorship that's taking place on many social media platforms, well, that only is possible because those platforms are owned by a centralized authority or company or CEO is running and making the decisions. And as a result, decentralized platforms are springing up all over the place. So, and I think that's going to happen in all factions of society going forward, to where eventually it won't be possible for a single person or governing body to make decisions on behalf of everyone.
Yeah, hallelujah to that. I remember reading a book in the 90s, early 90s. It was written by a CIA operative that his job in the CIA was to study past and present civilizations. And this particular book was specifically about America. And he basically called it. And he said that at the end of the day, what would occur would be local government, like local council government. And yeah, because I can see a lot of what I'm seeing out there in the field through individuals, both what we would consider in a light worker circle or not. People are putting their hands up and just saying, I don't think I can do this anymore. I've had enough of this. And it, more than ever, energy is speaking. It really is, regardless of what's being said. My friend that came over and brought the fire pit, she is a major in the Air Force Reserves, and she has a civil service job with the Army, or I might have that backwards. And I said, so how's it going? Because she's in there pretty much 7 days a week. She's got a very important job in regard to like sexual harassment issues and that type of thing. But she said, Todd, it's amazing, with all this craziness, and here we are in the military, which is very, very straight lines and cut and dry. There's so many people that we say aren't awake that are waking up, and that's got to be one of the gifts of 2020 and the supposed constrictions that have been put upon us, where the individual is starting to claim their sovereignty. Yeah. Now, I know you guys have your finger on the pulse with these kids, and we've had a real interesting time the last few months with some of the shows with children, parents of children, people like Mary Rodwell, who works with children all around the world. The instances of these children, the stories that are being conveyed of their telepathy, of the messages they have for their parents or for the earth, are just are expanding rapidly. Have you noticed anything like that with what you guys are doing with these kids?
Well, you should probably interview Kayla. She's the one who works with the kids primarily, but you're probably better
Oh
qualified,
gosh,
yeah.
absolutely. I mean, they're fantastic. We had our event this past summer, but we do the remote program, and I've been a guest on the remote program as a speaker, and I'm floored.
Yeah.
I mean, we have kids who are channeling Isis.
Yeah.
We have kids that can see grids, that are working on grids. We had a girl, I think she was 7 years old as when I was on the call, and she was talking about how she can turn the TV on and sit with her back to the television, but see everything on the screen, you know? So I think this is just a testament really to the high energies on the earth, as well as, you know, the threshold of consciousness that we've reached, because in order for these kids to be here, you know, and be able to maintain those gifts and put them into action is just incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and with their numbers increasing, I mean, again, just looking at it as pure energy. I mean, it's like the faucet that's turned on that you can't stop now. I mean, some of these stories are just amazing, though. Even children that are not even talking. You know, I have a friend of mine, and I think their boy's probably he's probably a year and a half, and he said the other day that and which happens to him every day, his son started communicating with him and explaining to him that him and many children around the world like him were basically transmuting all the crap from the collective field. And there was some other stuff that was in it as well. But we've had several instances of people talking about their children that I don't know. To me, if I look at 2021, I think before the end of the year, we're going to start to palpably see the impact of this new energy, this golden child energy that they're bringing. Like you said, are able to sustain it now, because either our energetic force is in the majority, or theirs is just immune to the things that suppressed it in ourselves.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
The crystalline state that they're in when they come in really does protect them, you know, from a lot of the density that we've been subject to for so long. And it helps them to be, you know, transmuters in action, you know, where they're literally clearing some of this from the earth just because they're here.
Yeah.
And that's coming in session a lot.
Has it really? Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. Yeah, it's a fascinating subject. Now, do you guys have anything coming up that you wanted to let us know about? Are you guys doing anything? You mentioned you were doing something new, but anything that you might want to expand awareness about while we're here?
Yeah, go ahead. Talk about the legal program.
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, we have a new project that's actually an old project that we just relaunched newly. We are developing, so we have a legal team that's working together to essentially create some programs to help people to essentially function in the system, but not be burdened by the system, you might say. So, for example, let's say you have a child and the government comes and takes your child, where the reason that happens is because legally that child doesn't belong to you, it belongs to the state, because birth certificate and all of that, right? So, but the problem is that there's no organized education or assistance to help people to undo all of that we've done to ourselves. So we're actually going to, within the next couple of months, start putting out an educational series, so a video series, probably every month or two, where we're going to take people through from the very basics all the way through to an advanced understanding of how the law actually works and how to essentially change their status in the system so that we can take back our rights. And so the eventual consequence of this is you can have a legal structure or a legal entity within the system that allows you to function in the system, but then leave it behind in the system so it doesn't become a burden to you. So, for example, let's say, for example, mandatory vaccine. So now I don't think they're going to go door to door and enforce that, but let's just say that they do. Well, the reason they can do that is because even though people think they own their homes, you don't really own your home, because if you're paying property tax, that means you don't actually own that property. You're paying somebody else who actually owns it, which is typically the state that owns that property, or the mortgage company may own the house, but the state owns the land. So even though you have a title is an actual ownership. So what we're going to do is we're going to teach people how to undo all of that and go back to the layer of law that exists beneath the surface layer that was put on top of it, so that we can get back our land and get back our property and get out of debt, and also essentially change our status in the system so that we have more rights, and, well, essentially the rights that we originally should have had.
Right.
But the thing is, this has never been done before in an organized, structured way. So we're going to have an education layer to teach people, and then we're also going to provide coaches and consultants to help people to actually file the necessary documents so that they can change their legal status, and then also provide litigators to go to court and solve these bigger problems that are happening in society.
Wow, that's big.
The question coming here, no property taxes. Yes, once you, for example, if you have a title to your land or your property, a title isn't ownership. A title is essentially you're borrowing that property from somebody, or you're not even borrowing. Essentially, somebody else, usually the state, owns that property. And when you have a title, it's essentially saying, well, we own that property, but we're going to let you live there, and in exchange, you're going to pay us property tax. Well, once you get a land patent on that land, now you actually own that property, and property tax goes away. And you can also turn around, and once you own the land, let's say you have a mortgage on a house that's a couple $100,000, and you get a land patent on the land. Well, now the property tax goes away, and you can turn around and go to your mortgage company and start billing them for having their house on your land. So typically what will happen in that circumstance is the mortgage company will just forget the loan, and you have the house free and clear. So things like this, we're going to start teaching people how to do and providing people to walk them through the process.
I love it. I absolutely love it. It's yeah. It's the physical actions of the energetic sovereignty that we're claiming.
Yeah, I think it's important. We have to embody and have the spiritual piece, and that's kind of what the organization attempts to balance. So we also have Conscious Action, which is, or we'll call it Peace in Progress, which is an initiative to design and construct organic farms. So we have that starting this year, as well as we are launching a mentorship program for the kids. And that should be out actually pretty soon, in the next month or two, where some of these kids who are, extremely talented and gifted, whose parents don't understand how to work with them or coach them or bring it forward, we're offering teachers, mentors to work one-on-one so that they can have someone to, assist and support what they're here to do. So,
you guys don't take on small projects. I'll have to say that, which is a great credit to you. I mean, I'm just curious, how many people do you have in your energy field that are part of these multiple collaborations?
Not a lot. You'd be surprised how much we can. Well, we have different teams working on different projects. So,
Okay.
So on the legal or on the law side, we have a couple of people who are on the education. So on the law side, we have different components. So we have education and the coaching or consulting portion. And at the moment, we have 2 people who are focused in that area. And they're the ones who are going to be teaching the classes, which we'll be putting out on YouTube and Facebook live stream. And then on the litigation side, we're going to have 2 additional people. So these are people who are very skilled at going to court and fighting for things, and so they have expertise in that area. So that's a whole separate team that doesn't really mingle with the other projects. And the farm project is still in the early planning stages. So it's just a few of us at this stage. Over the next year and a half, we're going to be planning it and planning the location and everything. But ultimately, we are going to be looking for a lot of volunteers to help pull all of that together. But on the planning level, there really aren't a lot of us, just a handful of us.
Yeah, and Todd, this is really where that universal magic happens. Like sometimes we look back at the things that we accomplish as an organization with very little resources and people, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's like that energy comes in when the intention is there and you keep pushing forward and things show up. The right people show up with the right talents, the right amount of time, whatever it may be. And then when the project is over, we shift again. And it really is pretty incredible to witness how that works.
Yeah, I think Ethan said it just right when he said, you got to take some action behind that, behind what we're getting. And you said it, embodying it.
Mm-hmm.
And Morgan often says it. If I get off track, we've got to take steps that direction based on what we know and what we've embodied, or to embody it. And you're right. You're right. The smoke clears, and then you're like, wow, how did that happen? How do you come out of Sedona after 3.5 weeks of incredible experiences and get 5 hours out of town, and somebody sends you a message and says, I have a bus, a 26-foot bus I want to give you. And we just pull over on the side of the road and 3 birds cross, and you just know, like, wow, this is, and you're right. But it does, we have to feed, or the magic doesn't just come. It is a co-creation. It is a union, I guess, to actually step into the energy of it versus holding back, as we've done for so long. Not to condemn anything or anyone, but that was the program. But yeah, you guys are doing it. You're killing it. Yeah, I really hope that when it gets warmer, we can run up there and have a visit with you guys. I really appreciate you guys coming on. On behalf of everybody, thank you for your service to humanity, and I mean that because, you guys have big kahunas. I mean, you really do. You're. Somebody said the other day, you can't just talk the talk, and it's not even about walking the talk anymore. It's about walking the walk. So that's what I really gain from you, is that you do what you do. And you don't talk about it a lot. You just do it, right? And I think that's a great example for all of us.
Thank you.
For all of us, yeah. So, you guys, all blessings to you both. Thank you for honoring us with your presence. Thank you for what you do. And I look forward to many collaborations. And I look forward to Morgan and I getting up there at some point and having a visit with you and taking in the energy of, immersing in the energy of what you guys are making. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.